Good day everyone. I am Gabriel Paras, and we will be tackling the barriers to intercultural communication. So, barriers to intercultural communication includes language differences, cultural misunderstanding, and prejudice. These barriers can lead to conflict and miscommunication. Communication is a cultural practice. Apart from the communication elements, the following intercultural problems impede effective interpersonal communication. This slide emphasizes that communication is deeply rooted in culture. It also highlights that there are specific intercultural issues that can hinder effective communication between people from different backgrounds beyond the basic element of communication itself. Essentially, it's saying that understanding cultural differences is crucial for successful communication.
Hi everyone, it's me again, Niño, and today we will be talking about the different barriers in intercultural communication. The first one is ethnocentrism. It is judging another culture solely by the values and standards of one's own culture. What does this exactly mean? This means that we judge other cultures because of the values and standards that we have grown up or are used to seeing. This kind of mindset can create misunderstandings, stereotypes, and even discrimination for the people around us. For example, imagine someone from a Western country that criticizes another country for eating with their hands rather than using utensils. For them, it can seem uncivilized. But in many cultures, this is a respected and traditional way of eating. Ethnocentrism prevents us from appreciating diversity and instead makes us see different customs as wrong just because they are different from the ones that we are used to. On the flip side, cultural relativism is the belief that a culture should be judged by its own context and not measured against its own culture. Essentially, it encourages us to understand cultures within their own context. Instead of judging, we try to see traditions and customs from the perspective of those who practice them. For instance, certain rites of passage, clothing choices, or even social norms may seem unusual to outsiders but hold deep cultural significance for the people who follow them. By adopting cultural relativism, we tend to foster respect, open mindedness, and effective intercultural communication.
What is stereotyping? Stereotyping is any thought widely adopted about specific types of individual or certain ways of behaving intended to represent the entire group of those individuals or behaviors as a whole. When you stereotype, you do not respond to your interlocutor's message. Instead, you judge the person on the basis of what you believe about the group the person belongs. For example, if a teacher assumes that a quiet student is not intelligent simply because they don't participate in class discussions, instead of engaging with the student's actual abilities, the teacher judges them based on the stereotype that quiet students are less capable.
So, next is prejudice. It is generally referred to as the unfair, biased, or intolerant attitudes or opinions towards another person or group simply because they belong to a specific religion, race, nationality, or another group. So, this basically happens when people judge others based on their differences without knowing them personally. So, this creates barriers in communication and can lead to discrimination. For example, if a company refuses to hire someone just because of their ethnicity, even though they are qualified, that is prejudice. Another example is assuming a person is dangerous just because of their appearance or background. Like when we see people covered in piercings or tattoos, we would immediately assume that they are addict. So that is a form of prejudice. To overcome this, we should practice open mindedness, respect, and empathy in our interactions. By doing so, we create a more inclusive and harmonious society.
I am Krizzalie de Otero. I will be continuing the barriers to intercultural communication number 4. Now let's talk about assuming similarities instead of differences. In order to prepare yourself for various circumstances, it is very important to assume laws, habits, and attitudes of another society. In simple words, this happens when we expect people from different backgrounds to think and act the same way we do. A great example is our Filipino tradition of mano po. So, in our country, it's a sign of respect to take an elder's hand and press it to your forehead. But imagine doing this to a foreigner, maybe an American or a European visitor. They might get confused, pull their hand away, or even feel awkward because this gesture isn't just part of their culture. You assumed they would understand, but instead, it led to an uncomfortable, awkward situation. So, to avoid situations like this, we should always be observant and open minded. Instead of assuming people do things the same way we do, we should take time to learn about different perspectives and respect cultural differences. And let's move on to the next slide. Now let's talk about anxiety. It is feeling nervous, which can affect communication when you focus so much on your own feelings that you do not pay attention to what other people are telling you. A relatable example for this is, have you ever stood in front of everyone, specifically presenting in class, heart pounding, handshaking, and suddenly your mind goes blank? You prepared your speech, you practiced and all, but because you're so anxious, all of a sudden you're having a hard time pronouncing simple words, you stutter a lot, your voice begins to tremble, and you can focus on what you're actually saying. Instead, you're overthinking. What if I make a mistake? What if they laugh at me? What if they think I'm really stupid? But anxiety is something we all experience, whether it's presenting in class, talking to a teacher, or even meeting new people. It can make communication difficult because we focus too much on our own fears instead of actually listening and responding properly. At the end of the day, mistakes and nervousness are normal. What matters is that we keep trying and improving. So the next time you feel anxious about speaking in front of the class, just take a deep breath, do your best, and focus on what you want to say instead of how you look or sound, so that you can communicate more confidently and avoid possible misunderstandings, etc. And that's all for barriers to intercultural communication.
For the key takeaway, to succeed in communication encounters, you need to indulge in passive observation. So what is passive observation in the first place? Passive observation is when you are observing someone close without experiencing it, or gaining knowledge from noticing how someone works without directly affecting the process of outcome. So in short, observe first before you open your mouth. Understanding others is essential in communication, especially in intercultural communication. For us to be able to understand others, we need to see them from their perspectives and not on our own to be able to effectively communicate with them. So that's it for the intercultural communication, ethics and competence, and barriers of intercultural communication. Hope you've got to learn something from us. Thank you for listening and keep on learning.